Tonight on the show, you host the power. In fact, you hold it and you give it out to your elected representatives. And it is almost as though sometimes you sit by on the sidelines and feel like the decisions are being taken without you. We are reviewing 2025. We're looking at the big news, the big issues of this year. What did you make of it? But also, what do you expect for 2026? There are so many people who make a lot of resolutions entering the new year. It is time for all of us to also make a resolution in terms of what it is exactly that we intend, that we need to see regarding our country in 2026. So I have some really brilliant minds who are connecting with me on this subject. And as always, I'm really interested in getting to know your thoughts via WhatsApp 055 1111 997 055 1111 997. Today, we're just asking a pretty simple question that we should imagine our country that you want to inherit and shape. We just don't want to focus on the problems of today. We want to draw out this conversation to focus on the opportunities that comes with governance, opportunity, culture, and national identity. And so we just want to unpack not only what is not working, we also want to imagine our constitution, the governance, the economy, through the eyes of all of us as citizens of this republic. Connecting with me on this very important matter, Raymond Edem Tamaklo is with Presidency Communications, and he speaks on a lot of subjects for the government. He connects with us in studio. Raymond, it's good to have you connect with us.
Good evening to you, Kwaku. Good evening to our cherished listeners and viewers online. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Brilliant. And then Ernesto Yeboah, as always, one of our regulars on this show, an activist par excellence when it comes to real activism and speaking to the things that really matter to the ordinary people. You would always hear his voice over there. It's always a delight to listen to you. Good to have you connect with us on the show.
Thank you very much, Kwaku. And I'm very happy to be here.
And pretty shortly, we'll also be joined by Nana Kofi Akwa, his blogger and pastor. He's been on this show a couple of times, and he has very interesting views also about what it is that we can do for our country. So, let me start with you, Ernesto. 1 year, 2025. It's not just about the coming into office of John Mahama and the NDC and what have you, but how have you assessed 2025 in the life of our country?
Well, Kwaku, thank you once again, and good evening to all your wonderful listeners and to my colleague panelists. I think the year has been rapidly fast in coming to a close, but also not without drama and a lot of happenings. I think this year the nature of death swept across the country in such a way that it has left us poorer for all the minds that we should have been nursing and harnessing in order to build our way forward. And I can't list all of them, but we know we've lost many prominent people in our society. And apart from that, we've lost also a significant number of quite an unknown, group of people to kidney failures and all of that, all through the Galamsey menace and all of that. And that appears for me to be one of the lowest points when we talk about the Mahama administration. I think that his temperament has been good for our country for at least some time. We haven't seen some of the excesses that we saw in the last administration, and sometimes unnecessary beatings that came from the presidency. I mean, you would find a president goes to a function and then instructing chiefs to be on their feet, or saying certain very unpresidential, unpalatable things that are very unbecoming of a president, such as, telling flood victims people who have lost families, they've lost property, that, hey, you didn't vote for me, but, So, that level of pettiness, we haven't seen with President Mahama. And I think it is something to be thankful to God about. But when it comes to the fight against Galamsey, like I said, we haven't seen much effort and much commitment. It's been, so far lip service and all of that. Well, thankfully, the LI 246, 2462 has been repealed, but Galamsey still remains very active, with the Ashanti region almost taking over as a headquarters. Apart from that, we haven't also seen much on the fight against corruption. We have witnessed more.
Yeah, I think, Ernesto, corruption is a very substantive subject, and I think I would really want to come there. So please hold it there for me, and let me come to Raymond on the Galamsey bit. Really, the government did say a lot of big things leading up to the 2024 election. And then, in office, you've revoked the LI 2462, of course, after flip-flopping on it a couple of times, saying we'll repeal it, and then having to take some time. There's so many who still say that the Galamsey is still really out there, and they haven't felt that the government is really doing anything about it, Raymond. That is right, not so.
Thank you very much, Kwaku. Once again, a good evening to yourself and good evening to my colleague online or on the phone and to our listeners. And so the subject of Galamsey has plagued us, has plagued various governments over the years. Several governments have made pledges, promises that they were going to deal decisively with the menace of Galamsey. But we have made very little inroads when it comes to that subject. President John Dramani Mahama, in the run-up to the 2024 elections, made a categorical promise to the Ghanaian people that if he is given the opportunity to become president, he was going to deal decisively with the menace of Galamsey. We have seen in past administrations where President Akufo-Addo himself put his presidency on the line to fight, but he failed woefully. That notwithstanding, we can see that there is a clear difference in terms of posturing, in terms of demeanor, in terms of the level of tolerance for Galamsey. Under the current administration, under President John Dramani Mahama, we have adopted a zero tolerance for Galamsey and its related activities. The good people of Ghana, the viewers watching us online, the listeners listening to us, they themselves can see that indeed the president and the current NDC administration is putting in measures, is deploying personnel on the ground to fight the illicit activity of Galamsey. We have seen soldiers making interventions. We have seen forest reserves that had been taken by criminal bandits who, for self-seeking purposes, would wreak havoc on our environment. Persons who have gone into these forests, into these rivers to destroy for those self-indulgent gains and purposes. We have retrieved many of those forest reserves. As you have said, the government has successfully repealed LI 2462. We have categorically banned mining activities in forest reserves and water bodies. That is indicative enough of the political will to fight Galamsey. You have also said that there may have been some hesitations from this administration. Rightly so, I would make that concession. But the point needs to be made that these hesitations may have come across because the government needed to assess the situation and know the proper course of action to take. Whether or not we are to reshape and repurpose the LI 2462 or to outrightly repeal the law. After deliberations, considerations, the government have come to the firm conclusion that it was needed, or it is needed, that we repeal the law, which has been rightfully done. And so at all points in times, whatever actions we have taken as a government is in the genuine interest of the Ghanaian people, is in the common good. of the Ghanaian people. It is why probably you may have seen, or it does come across as though government was hesitant. Government was not hesitant. We were assessing the situation. I have listened severally to the lands minister, the initiatives they are adopting and implementing, licenses that have been procured through very fraudulent means under the erstwhile administration. All of these licenses have been revoked. Persons who are known to have been kingpins under the the previous administration are today before court. The Ashanti regional chairman of the NPP, Chairman Untumi, is today before the court for perpetrating or engaging in acts of galamsey and its related activities. And so I can tell you categorically, for a fact, without mincing words, that the government has adopted a zero policy against galamsey and its related activities, and we will continue to fight. We are fighting for the common good of Ghana. We are fighting for the sake of posterity, and we are also implementing alternative livelihood policies so that some of these people who out of want or need for jobs engage in these activities are properly engaged by government, are properly giving other avenues to make decent incomes so that people will be deterred or will not be enticed to enter into galamsey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, Nana Kofi Akwa, what are some of the things that stood out for you in this year, the year under review, really?
So I think on the matter of galamsey, I was so traumatized by the previous administration that I don't think I've recovered because I was involved in the fight against galamsey. And they weaponized the FDA against me. So I had to get lawyers anytime. Finally, I had to meet the FDA board to prove that it was just stress. But also, I felt that considering the size of the problem, if anybody was going to tackle it, they would need to be very strategic. So I am still observing. I haven't seen anything that I would say has been a drastic solution. Also, because I was actually on the ground talking to the young men and young women who work in galamsey, I've been worried about creating a vacuum. I'll meet young men from the Upper East, not very well educated. This is how they find money to send back to their families. So I'm like, okay, I am 100% for banning galamsey, but then what happens to the thousands upon thousands of young people who make a living, all the families that depend on it for sustenance, So I'm hoping for something that is not just political rhetoric, a solution that is designed not just to please the masses, but something that would actually be a proper long-term solution. I think a threat to the environment where our water bodies are being polluted with hard metals, a lot of the forest reserve is lost. These problems cannot be politicized. If the water is contaminated, wearing a party T-shirt won't spare you from the impact of the pollution. So I personally am looking forward to the day when, as a nation, we can look at certain issues and say these issues should not be politicized. We would have a system where matters of health, matters of education, those core matters will not be politicized. So I don't have much to say on the current government's efforts so far, but we're observing. I think that I have just felt that if they're going to do anything substantial, they have to be strategic. So I am not in a hurry to criticize them yet, but I have to say that the previous administration made me very, very scared, for this nation and its future.
Right.
On that matter.
Brilliant. Let me come back to you, Raymond, before I go back to Ernesto, who wanted to raise some issues of corruption. The year under review, there's still a lot of things that have happened. I mean, particularly looking at even places like Tema Oil Refinery there up there. There's this so-called touting of gains, changes, developments that have happened there, but we are still importing loads and loads of petrol. I mean, I'd also say that, listen, where's the transformation and how are we not feeling it in all of these sectors of the economy?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kwaku, for that question. And so the situation of Tema Oil Refinery has been a very grim one. It has been a very sad one, even before we came into office. But I can tell you very proudly that only 10 months in office, or 11 months in office, the infrastructure has seen a very drastic, or should I say dramatic, turnaround under the leadership of its managing director, Mr. Edmond Combat. Kwaku, it would interest you to know that our fuel import bill as a country annually stands at $10.2 billion. While we have Tema Oil Refinery that has the capacity to meet 60% of all fuel consumption needs domestically, if Tema Oil Refinery is able to meet our fuel consumption needs domestically, it would also mean that it is going to save us $400 million monthly, not even annually. And that would have a very positive, a hefty positive impact on our economy. It is going to stabilize our cedi. It is going to make it stronger as against other major international trading currencies. What it is also going to mean is that the cost of fuel domestically is going to be cheap. That would also translate into the cost of transport, into the cost of food commodities on the market. It would impact positively on inflation. And so for President John Dramani Mahama, it is one of the notable promises he made to the good people of Ghana, consequent to which today he has the mandate to lead. The promise was simple, that he has all the intention to operationalize Tema Oil Refinery and make sure that it becomes fully functional to the point where we are refining crude and we are seeing the dividends of its operation. Kwaku, in 2013, the public debt of Tema Oil Refinery stood at $650 million US. When President Mahama came into office, he instituted the ESLA. The purpose of ESLA was to issue bonds and service this debt. It was projected that by 2019, TOS debt was supposed to have been entirely serviced. When we were leaving office in 2016, the debt was reduced to $350 million US. But sadly, when we came back into office in 2025, TOS debt rose to $570 million US. They were owing ECG, they were owing Ghana Water Company, they were owing GRA to the tunes of $200 million US. They were owing SNI to the tunes of $50 million. They were owing Star Provident Fund to the tunes of 160 million Ghana cedis. They were owing crude suppliers like Kosara and the rest. Retirees who were owed terminal benefits had not been paid over the period. And so the level of attrition that we had come to meet was high and very excessive. Many of the workers had left to the Middle East. Some had gone to Dangote refineries out of, this attrition that I am talking about. Today, as I am speaking to you, and mind you, you would recall that in 2024, the NPP wanted to sell Tema Oil Refinery for $22 million US. I've said it elsewhere. They continue to contest me, but it is a fact. They intended to sell Tema Oil Refinery for $22 million US. Today, as I'm speaking to you, over the short period of 7 months, Tema Oil Refinery has turned in a profit of $21 million US. How do you intend to sell such a vital state asset for only $22 million US? And they were ready to sidestep all the regulatory requirements, the dictates of the Public Procurement Act, specifically Section 44. They sidestepped all of those laws intended. They had all intents and purposes to sell the infrastructure for $22 million US. But as we are speaking, we have turned a profit of $21 million US. The renovation on tour is almost complete. The indication from the managing director is that by end of this year, not even next year in January, by end of this year, the oil refinery will start refining crude oil. Its capacity has been increased from 28 metric tons to 45 metric tons. And so everything in place, everything is in place, everything is well positioned for Tema Oil Refinery to start refining crude oil, be fully functional, substitute 60% of our domestic fuel consumption needs. And so this is just one out of the many stories, very positive stories we have experienced just within 1 year under President John Dramani Mahama's leadership and stewardship. And so I can tell our listeners, I can tell our viewers that 2026 only bodes well for us all.
I mean, Ernesto, you wanted to talk about corruption, and one of the things that stresses me about, I mean, this country is the kind of decision making we do. And honestly, this is not an indictment on any person or an allegation of bad faith, but you look around us, look at all the transportation challenges we have. People are not getting vehicles to go to work. People are not getting vehicles to go back home from work and all of that. There's a big issue to deal with railway, for instance, fixing it. But somehow, we still think procurement will fix all our problems. And so Transport Ministry is going to buy 300 buses. And so a deputy minister is in Egypt now with videos on social media about how we're assembling. So we are putting 300 buses on the road so that they use which of the road? The road that is choked already. What happened to the bus rapid transport, the BRT lanes? I mean, so, and we know what procurement is for a lot of people. It appears to be a conduit for people to benefit in a certain way and all of that. And so, yes, let's buy 300 buses. Sometimes let's leave it there to rot, like we've seen with our yellow buses. So decision making in the country frustrates me a lot. And I get a sense that we don't have a lot of people like you, like Nana Kofi-Akwa, like Brad Simmons, like the Franklin Kujos, who continuously involve themselves in public policy to shape the way things are done. I don't know if you get the same sense that the entirety of the citizenry largely have just gone have just reclined in the chair like, listen, we voted last year, let's wait till 2028 where we'll go with our thumb again to make a decision.
Said it all. But before I come to that, let me rebut some of the things that my brother Raymond said concerning Galamsey first. He said there's zero tolerance for Galamsey under the Mahama administration. That is completely false from where I sit and from what I see, I mean, on a daily basis. When they were in the opposition, they told us that they were going to declare a state of emergency in, mining areas to ensure that they undertake an audit and then bring the situation under control. But we haven't seen that. We have seen Galamsey rather on the rise and rampant in open spaces, sometimes the full glare of the public and at certain, public spaces and institutions. And authorities have bypassed and haven't said anything about that. We have seen the arrest of, Galamsey operators who have immediately, been left off the hook right at the police station. They are not even taken to court. We have seen it. And your man in the house, what's his name, Erastus, has on numerous occasions, lamented those kinds of situations. We have seen seized excavator vanish into thin air under this Mahama administration. And so let's not, kid ourselves that, there is some zero tolerance, for corruption. In fact, Besides that, we have also seen more excavators being cleared at the ports. And this one, when you say it, you say, oh, but excavators are not just for Galamsey operations. And so that has been the argument. And so, whilst the Mahama administration may be doing well in certain areas, let us be honest to admit that in the area of Galamsey, they haven't done their best. Now, on the issue of corruption, what I realistically want to see are more prosecutions. That I am not seeing. I mean, if I was going to imagine that they were going to deal with corruption amongst themselves and to ensure that they follow the procurement, how do you call it, processes, and obtain all the ethical requirements in space to conduct themselves in ways that are not detestable. I'll be lying to myself. But what I can realistically hope for is that those who stole our money yesterday should, in the very least, be prosecuted. We should see something. But even that, we are not. We are seeing more knowledge prosecute, how do you call it, extensions by this administration than maybe prosecutions. Yes, there has been public, how do you call it, prosecutions, but that's not what we are looking for. We need them to be nailed in court and thrown behind bars forever so that it serves as deterrent to anybody who in the near future is put in charge of our resources. But we haven't seen that. Today, oral comfortably doesn't exist. And somebody should tell me that oral exists. Somebody should tell me that the government is very interested and keen in prosecuting corruption cases. We are not seeing that. In fact, some of the deals or arrangements when they come up smells so much of corruption. Talk about the lithium deal. How can anybody who has obtained basic education in this country be arguing that 5% is better? It doesn't make sense. The only sense it makes to me is the fact that somebody may be gaining, I mean, on our blind side. Otherwise, this is a bad deal and it shouldn't go through. Yes, they have withdrawn it, but I think that it calls for a bigger and a larger conversation. A conversation about our resources, our mining laws, and the percentages, and even our negotiations and all of that. It has to come to the table. And so, I mean, Kwaku,
Yeah.
I want to put the brakes here and hear what my other colleagues also have to say on the subject.
Yeah, Nana Kofi, you can weigh in a little bit of what Ernesto has been talking about, but I also want to take your view on 2026. I mean, there's a lot of things that is going to happen. For instance, the Constitutional Review Committee, the report is going to happen. The president is going to receive it. They are going to determine some of the way we are going to go about it. Well, what are your expectations going into the new year in terms of leadership, really? The kind of challenges we face, some of the things that, I mean, you think of the solutions as basic as possible, and it's just really not happening. And you talk about the same thing. I mean, if we played back kind of reviews that we did 2024, 2023, of course, a few of the things have changed, but some of the things we talk about the same thing. For instance, there were floods this year. It will be floods next year in the same places. I mean, really.
Thank you, Kwaku. So today, a gentleman asked me a question. He said, when people come to Ghana, they say, "Oh, young Ghanaians, we raise our children very well. They are very respectful. They are very obedient." And yet, and white people raise their children, and they are disrespectful and all that. But when they become adults, why is it that they make better leaders than we do? If we raise our children so well, how come they make such terrible leaders? And I thought about it for a long time, and I told him I think it's accountability. We come from a culture that discourages young people from holding older people accountable. So for example, forgive my French here, but in a typical Ghanaian home, uh, if the adult in the room farts, forgive the French, you are not. It is rude to say that daddy or mommy or grandma farted. You know, so I think that is at the crux of our problem. If you see the blatant corruption in the previous administration, you would think that by this time would have a lot of court cases of people being prosecuted. And I think I agree with the last speaker on that one. We haven't seen much of it, but it's a much, much bigger problem. How do we raise our children to understand that it is expected of them to hold both themselves and leadership accountable, that it is okay to question authority? I mean, this problem is all over in the church. There are churches where if you're a young person and you speak up, you'll be called an orangutan and all that. You'll be ostracized. It's in the culture, and that is part of the real problem. So when leaders are going wayward, when leaders are misbehaving, they are often the last people to know the extent of their damage. We saw leaders happily commissioning statues made for them, and they were very, very happy on their own. They were very, very happy with their results, and it looked as if the emperor was naked and the emperor didn't know it, and nobody around him. No, so I am hoping that beyond the specific political issues we have to look at, I think I would want us to go to our educational system again. We have to look at, Ghanaian educational system doesn't teach critical thinking because of this. Those who can afford to are moving their children into schools that run the Cambridge or the IB system, or moving them into countries where children are taught that it is okay to question authority. It is okay to think critically and have questions. In fact, you are encouraged to have questions, to raise questions. You're encouraged and supported to do that. We don't have that in our culture. It doesn't matter. Even when your teacher is wrong, if you point it out in class, you are considered disrespectful and too known. The expression we use is too known. You know, and you are victimized, and and I mean, for example, I tell everybody, if I had taken a political side in this country many years ago, I am sure I would have been much, much better off. But when all you want to do is hold government accountable and hope that you become a voice that helps them stay on the right track, every government that comes treats you as opposition. Everybody sidelines you, and very intentionally sometimes go out of their way to make things difficult for you because they don't like what you're saying. But the long-term effect affects all of us. It affects us generationally, and the way to break it is we have to change how we raise our children. If your child doesn't want something, you don't say, "Hey, shut up." If an adult is talking, you keep quiet. No, they don't want it. We have to change that culture so that uh, you know look around us. Look in the sub-region. What is happening recently in Benin? The government was nearly overthrown. There is chaos all around us.
Hello.
I hope that never happens in Ghana. But the discontent, the anguish, the anger. Look at what happened in Tanzania. How do you win an election by, is it 80% or 90% under those circumstances? And the first thing they did was to try and shut the young people up. It is not sustainable. Fortunately, Ghana is seen as a beacon of hope. Ghana is seen as, so I hope that this government would listen to the TikTok generation or whatever we call them and realize that they are very, very important. The future is theirs. This is a country. We have more young people than adults. We have more young people than adults. So the earlier we realize that, listen, if we want to build a nation that can be progressive in the future, a nation that will truly stand out, a nation that will have the lion's share of the future, we have to challenge our culture. And I think this whole thing where we want our children to be quiet and put their hands at their back and look down when they are talking to adults, So these people who grow up, they become adults, and they get surprised when a child questions them. Because when they were children, they were not allowed to question. So now, as adults with power, even their own wives cannot question them. Their own husbands can question them. And yet we say it's a democracy. We say it is a government of the people by the people. But that's not what we tend to have. So I am hoping that beyond, sometimes we get caught in NPP and DC. That doesn't help anyone. What kind of future do we want our children to have? In a world where countries we look up to, a president can stand up on one day and say, "I'm canceling all visas to your country," or this. The enrollment of Ghanaian students into America and Europe dropped by over 50% this year. So people with money and resources who had wanted to educate their children abroad, about 50% of them or more, decided to not go there. Now we are looking at China and this and all that. Why don't we fix our system properly?
Brilliant.
Properly.
Raymond, what is in stock for 2026? And I mean, a lot of people are looking forward to a lot of changes. We've already marked 1 year since the election. 7th January will be coming soon. That will be 1 year since you assumed office. You may be right to say the economy is a bit stabilized. Of course, prices are still a bit high. They are. For me, I think that given where we see the CD now and given where we see inflation, prices should be much. Things should be going down, especially for these imported materials. But they are there. But some of them are stabilized. We like it like that. But what is in stock 2026? What should people expect?
Yeah, Kwaku, thank you very much. But even before that, I want to make a quick intervention on what my brother Ernesto said. He has said that it is a lie that we have adopted a zero tolerance for Galamsey and its related activities. He has also said that in opposition, we said that we're going to introduce a state of emergency to combat Galamsey. I want to set the record straight, and I want to make the point, and forcefully so, that the NDC as a corporate political body and its leader, its flag bearer, and now President, John Dramani Mahama, had not at any point in time said that if we came into office, we were going to introduce a state of emergency. But I must also be quick to make the concession that some individuals within the NDC, some leading members of the NDC, had said at the time that they believed in a state of emergency. It would be unfair to the president that what these individuals had said at some point in time, he be held accountable or responsible for those comments. In any case, the circumstances under which, the considerations for which those individuals made those suggestions in opposition, the question we need to ask, are those circumstances, those realities still at play as we are speaking? It is a fact that under President Akufo-Addo, Galamsey became a free-for-all venture. Quite apart from the fact that private individuals with the backing of people with resources, both locally and international, were engaged in acts of Galamsey. Members of the government themselves were engaged in this illicit enterprise. Persons at the heart of the presidency were engaged in Galamsey activities, and these are known facts. The former Minister of Environment, Frimpong Boateng, in his report, brought to bear some of these realities to us, members in government. Leaders of their party were caught on tape saying that their party needed money and so they must be allowed to engage in Galamsey activities. Secretaries to the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining was caught on tape receiving monies in the bid to procure fraudulent licenses for people to go and mine in forest reserves and water bodies. These were the realities of the time. It is why certain individuals or leading members of our party have had the cause to say that the president at the time should introduce a state of emergency. Let's ask ourselves the potent question: what is the reality today? Do we have people engaging brazenly in acts of galamsey with the backing of the president? Do we have persons at the heart of the presidency engaging in acts of galamsey? What is the posturing of the president? What is the posturing of the government? What is the demeanor? Is there a certain political will at play to fight the canker of galamsey that is ripping through our forest, our rivers, and our environment, causing havoc? I have said that the effects of galamsey goes very deep, and they do not discriminate. It does not care whether or not you are NDC. It does not care whether or not you are in government or you are MPP. We all feel the brunt of illegal mining activities. And rightfully so, the president has adopted the posturing. He has shown that he has the political will to fight categorically, decisively, unashamedly against galamsey and its related activity. It is one of the reasons why we have introduced the gold board today to export or take gold from the shores of Ghana has become very difficult. You can only do that through the Ghana Gold Board. And if your gold is a proceed of galamsey, you cannot sell to the gold board. As we are speaking, as we are speaking, the CEO of the Ghana Gold Board, Sami Jemfi, has indicated that they are procuring very sophisticated technology to be able to identify galamsey gold from that which is proper gold.
A technology can
or
tell
product. Of course, it can.
That this galamsey was mined illegally.
Listen. They are saying.
Illegally.
Listen. They say, or the CEO says, that they are going to be introducing tracing mechanisms to trace gold that has been procured or that has been mined properly from gold that has been procured or is a proceed of galamsey. And these are demonstrable policies of government to show that indeed there is a zero tolerance policy for galamsey and its related activities. No appointee of government, as we are speaking, is engaged in galamsey. Indeed, when allegations came against two persons within our government or within our party, quickly, these matters have been rightly referred to the office of the Attorney General, or is it IOCO, have been referred to IOCO for investigations to be done. If it were under the S1 MPP administration, you would have seen that such persons would have been protected. It is not the case today. And so I have also said that the menace of galamsey is not a matter we are going to deal with in a day, a month, or even a year. It is going to take concerted effort. It is going to take the collaboration of the various stakeholders and proponents of society to be able to combat decisively with this menace. Yeah. And the citizenry, we the people, need to back and support the government to be able to fight this canker and this menace that is plaguing all of us. Now you have asked, what is going to be the situation in 2026? And so 2025 has been a very good year. Inflation today stands at 6.3%, reducing from 23% all the way down to 6.3%. Prices of goods and commodities on the market have been stabilized. We have repealed the betting tax. We have repealed e-levy. Recently, we have repealed the COVID-19 levy under the 2016 budget. That is also going to mean that when Ghanaians import, you've raised concerns about import. That is going to mean that when Ghanaians import, the cost of duty at the port is going to be at a far lesser rate than we experienced even in 2025 and under the SWAL administration. And so the outlook for 2026, is very positive. We are going to continue to honor and respect the mandate of the Ghanaian people. We are going to continue to serve the good people of Ghana in all humility and in the urgency of purpose. Yeah. Thank you.
That will be perhaps the last word and the last show for Ghana Connect for 2025. We'll see you again same time as always on Fridays next year. And the next year, boy, as always, very brilliant points that you always make with the kind of passion that you speak with. God bless you for all you do. And thank you very much, Pastor Nana Kofi is, as you know, a pastor and a blogger, very passionate about this country. In fact, at the time that he suffered a lot of personal cost because he spoke out for this country. As always, thank you very much for also joining in, and thank you, Raymond Edem Tamaklo. I think this is your first time on Ghana Connect, is it?
Yes, is it?
Yeah,
it is. But when I was in school, I've appeared here a number of times.
But you finished school like 1 year ago. You are just about 21. So anyway, tomorrow on Newsfile, Supreme Court holds Pandai run. Oforiatta fights extradition to Ghana. Otumfuo mediation verdict, a resolution after decades of conflict. Your host, Samson Ladi Anyenini, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Also, on Joy Prime, there will be Prime Insights from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. with Blessed Soga. 2025 in review, the fight against Galamsey, corruption, by-elections and reruns, tax reforms, and the government economic performance. 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Joy Prime with Blessed Soga. The moment you finish that, in the Joy News File. A lot of real packed, insightful conversation with all of you joining in. My name is Kwaku Asante. I'll see you in the new year. Have a great holidays for all of you who celebrate. I'll see you when I see you.